thing is there's a couple areas where there's not as much branching in certain spots on the trunk, but for the most part, we have fairly radial branches emerging from all parts of the trunk. So it's nice for a more kind of, formal upright style tree. To give everyone a little bit of view for both sides to get an idea of what we're working with. I think for this, for me personally, I'm probably going to pick somewhere around this side as the front. I don't really like to pick a pinpoint at the very beginning, but it's going to be somewhere in this general region. As you're going through the tree and you start cutting stuff and you start styling branches, that might change a little bit depending on the exact positioning of the branches. I think looking at it from this side, we have a nice general view of the front around here. We've got branches that are coming out essentially 360 in most areas. And then when we go over to this side, we have something that would make a fairly good back branch. We might reduce that a little bit because it's quite heavy and strong in comparison to all the other branches surrounding it. But for now, we'll just keep that as an option. Once I get up to that, we'll reduce it a little bit further based on the size and shape that the branches below it take on. As far as the height of the tree goes, I'm probably going to reduce this a fair amount. I'm thinking somewhere around this region is kind of what I'm eyeing. There's a couple reasons for that. One is, generally speaking with Hinoki, a straighter trunk actually tends to look better. If you have something that has a lot of dramatic movement, that's perfectly fine too. But if you have something like this, where it starts off with a generally straight trunk, but then you get towards the top and it has some areas where it kind of has some slight movement and kinks and things like that, it's usually just better to either bend that if it's possible so it's straighter, or use these straight portions of the tree. It makes for a much stronger kind of prominent design in my opinion. If it were straight all the way and it had a little bit more taper leading towards the top, I would probably argue the case of keeping it taller, because I think that would make an interesting tree if the trunk was in a bit more of an ideal position. I don't know if you guys can all see that from where you are, but if you look at it, from this side, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, like where that trunk kind of juts to the back a little bit. So I think reducing it a decent amount will probably make the best tree, but I'm probably going to wait to make that cut towards when I get to the top with the wiring on this. So I'm going to just take a seat here so I can get a little better view on it. And if anyone has any questions while I'm going through this, feel free to ask away. So the first thing that comes to mind when I'm looking at this tree is these two guys down here. They're very, very low. We didn't take a super close look at the roots on this, but the pot did fall off of it while we were transporting it about 5.5 times. So we got a general idea of it, and they look pretty good. I think that's more or less where the base is, maybe a 1/4 inch underneath the soil. I'd say these guys are a little bit too low. I don't really know where I'm going to put those if I wire up. Do we all agree on that more or less?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those off. We're going to leave small little gens. The Hinoki will heal over these sort of cuts if you want to just cut them flush and put cut paste on it. I'm going to leave that up to whoever gets the tree in the raffle. But I will make small gens for the time being.
Can you do cuttings with your...
With the Hinoki, with the stuff I'm cutting? Yeah, if anyone did want to try their hand at, rooting these, Hinoki are very forgiving with cuttings. Like even stuff that's, a 1/2 inch in caliber or something like that, you can, in an ideal situation, not always, but you usually pretty easily get that to root if you are using rooting hormone, giving it shade, lots of water. The only thing I'd recommend if you are going to take any of these branches and make cuttings out of them is just reduce it a little bit so the cutting isn't transpiring quite as much. And something around the nature of like just that would be good. Make sure you clean up the bottom cut with sharp scissors as well before you stick it in soil, but if anyone wants one, have at it. But again, just
Any
other questions?
yes.
When you make that big cut at the top,
Mhm.
I mean, how are they as far as healing over?
So probably what I would do is just make a gin for the time being. What we might even do is reduce it so it sends the energy to the stuff on the bottom, but keep a little bit of foliage at the top. So once that branch we wire up to be the new apex, once that starts to take off and get a little bit stronger, then you could go and cut that, flush, cover it with cut paste. So if you wanted to have kind of a seamless transition where it was healed on the trunk, that would be possible that way.
Do they heal quickly or?
For a conifer quickly. Not as quickly as something like a trident maple or a Japanese maple perhaps, but definitely quicker than like, you know, a black pine or a white pine would. I think something like that in an ideal situation, you could probably get it to heal over in a couple years, give or take. Something like that. Right, so I'm not 100% sure on if I'll keep this branch or not, but I'm just going to take a look at the options the tree has for me and just play around with the positioning on it and see what I think feels best for me. So that is an idea of, you know, what removing those bottom branches does. It gives you a much better look at the trunk to see, you know, you have a decent swell in the base here, a little bit of spread, so it kind of helps show that off a bit more that way.
Okay, you finished your internship.
Yes.
Why are you still in Japan?
I like it over there. Long story short, I got married and we had a daughter, so.
We were wondering what her name was.
There's two reasons you move to a city, a good job or a good girl or guy usually. So for me, it was a little bit of both, but we really want our daughter to grow up speaking, we speak 3 languages in the house, English, Portuguese, and Japanese. So we want her to learn all those. So that's a big motivation for us kind of staying over there.
Is this the ideal time to do this kind of work?
I would say this is a pretty good time, yeah. Usually it's, Hinoki respond to this kind of work better if you do it during the growing season so they can get another flush out of them. Another good comment to bring up is whoever does win this tree, definitely make sure you fertilize it quite heavily so it recovers from this work.
And you'd start fertilizing right next day? Or?
Yeah, like right now, pretty much. So I'm just gonna remove the bark on those little cuts down there and just make those into gin. Usually what I like to do is you either take a scissor or concave cutter and just basically lightly wring the bark near the base. And then what you can do is you take your pliers, crush that bark on the outside, and they will come off quite easily this time of year. So the benefit when you wring the bark near the base like that is it's not going to pull off into the trunk. Sometimes if it doesn't go all the way through, you just take your scissors, give it a little snip, and then it'll come off clean. You don't have to worry about damaging the portions of the trunk that you actually want to keep in that case.
So to the top of your tree, back to the top.
Yes.
You're talking making the gin, cutting the top, part of the top off.
Uh-huh.
When you cut that top off, could you basically stick that in the ground as a cutting? Or
Chances are probably much less likely. I don't really like the top half of the tree as much. The main reason for that is not just talking about like the movement and relation, because that just affects the relation it has to the bottom of the trunk, but you can see that it's quite a bit leggier in these areas, so it kind of shows me that this part was grown much more quickly than the bottom half was, which isn't a bad thing as, you know, like a garden tree or a landscape tree. But the problem with that is if we're using this for bonsai, there's all these gigantic gaps. So it does kind of, depending on the style of tree you want to make, it narrows your options down quite a bit. So you could try. I think there's some sections like this thickness here, you might be able to get away with doing that as cutting perhaps.
Right.
But chances are definitely going to be a bit lower on something like that compared to something in the nature of this size.
If you had the time, could you air layer it?
Yeah, you could. You can air layer Hinoki. They take quite a while. You need to make sure you keep the roots very moist and happy during that time. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going through and kind of cleaning off some bottom growth and areas where there's, you know, collections of many branches coming from the same point before I start putting wire on it. So just making the wiring job a little bit more efficient, making sure the energy throughout the tree is directed to what I want to grow.
Did you poke around in that soil to see if that's actually the bottom of it, or if that's just a bulb from a graft, or?
I don't really feel comfortable doing it this time of year, to be
Yeah.
completely honest. There was another one at the workshop we did the other day that had very loose soil, and that one we poked around.
Yeah.
But for something like this,
It's tight, is it?
it's pretty tight, so I wouldn't, if it was like loose dirt, then I would probably, you know, cater to that idea of checking a little bit, because it's a good idea, because it does affect, you know, how you're going to design the tree. But I think in this case, probably the health of the tree would be more my concern. I don't want to poke around with that too much. Good question, though.
So repot in early spring then?
Yes, yeah.
Then you'll know if you made the right decision.
Oh, that's on who bought the raffle tickets then.
So I had heard from, I don't know, some forums and things that Hinoki Cypress tend to be maybe a little bit touchy about doing too much work in 1 year. So like on years that you repot, be lighter on styling and like pitch reductions. Is there any truth to that? I've kind of gone by that with mine.
I think it depends on how hard the repotting is. In an ideal situation, you know, like let's say you're repotting a tree that's been a bonsai pot for 20 years is much different than repotting something going from potting soil into bonsai soil. Repotting something going from, you know, a potting mix into bonsai soil is going to be a little bit more dramatic. You're probably removing more roots. You're rooting it a little bit more. So in that case, yes, it might have a little bit of a weaker push that year as you're in that kind of transitionary period. But I'd say in an ideal situation, if it's being repotted with care and it's been in container bonsai care for a while with the right soil, you know, the right growing medium, all of those things collectively, it shouldn't be too much of a factor. But I think in this particular case, as it's going from this nursery container into a bonsai pot, you might want to give it a little bit of a break the following year.
When you repot can you do it just like conifer, where you wouldn't take all of the soil, you would leave some, or is it?
Generally speaking, you want to leave some soil. So you'd want to start to transition it into bonsai soil, but that would probably take multiple repottings to get it to the point where it's all out of the bonsai, or all out of the nursery soil and into the bonsai soil.
So you don't bare root it,
Generally speaking, I would not.
So when you're making decisions on your pruning right now,
Mhm.
are you looking for things that are growing like up and down and kind of starting from there?
Yeah, things that are going completely upward, completely downward. I don't remove everything upward, but things that are overly strong coming from the top half of the branches, and just things that are a little too strong overall on the branch, that are not really in the silhouette that I would like to create with the tree.
Okay, if it's okay with you could tell us what you're gonna be working on for the next 5 or 10 minutes, and then we're gonna go into like some club announcements.
Yeah, that
and
sounds
things. You
great.
keep working, and then we'll catch up back with you when we finish with those.
Okay, so basically what I'm doing is just going through, getting some of these primaries down. The wire on this particular branch is a little bit too big, just if anyone was wondering. But I think we're a little short on the in-between size, so don't take it personal. But basically I'm just going through and wiring out some of these fronds and laying them out so they get light. So a lot of times with the Hinoki, you know, you'll have some branches where they're laying flat like how you want them. You have some that are kind of like sideways, some that are kind of upside down. So when you're doing this initial styling work on the Hinoki, the nice thing is you can lay the structure out. And what I've generally found is when you do this kind of work correctly on the Hinoki, you don't really need to wire it that much later in its life. Once you set that initial structure, it definitely falls into the category of species that you can rely a lot on scissor pruning and pinching to develop it. You might need some new wire down the road for branches as they develop, but generally speaking, once that structure is set on them, it doesn't shift as much like it does with other species.
How well does Hinoki air layer?
It air layers fairly well, but it takes much longer than other species. Air layers I've done in the past for Hinoki, where like something like a trident maple or a Japanese maple, you might be able to get that done in like a season. A Hinoki might take upwards, like let's say we're talking about something this caliber.
I was thinking the top.
The top, that might take a little bit longer. It might take, up to 2 years, depending on the strength of it. They also are very susceptible to getting damaged if they dry out too much when they're in that air layer stage. So you need to really stay on top of giving it plentiful amounts of water if you're going to try an air layer. But as far as the general technique, everything else would be more or less the same as air layering any species.
So can you do a ring air layer, or do you have to do something special like a bridge or a?
I've never
A
done like a
tourniquet?
ring, tourniquet air layer. I've just done the general, you know, taking like a ring section.
Right.
And doing it just how like you would with most deciduous species. It takes a while, but there are exceptions to that, like the, if you guys know what like Seka Hinoki is, the dwarf miniature ones, those ones air layer exceptionally easily. Like you could get roots on those in just a matter of weeks in certain cases.
You can drop the branches on the ground and a root.
More or less. More or less, I would say that
That
is
had
true.
happened, one fell off under the greenhouse floor and it rooted under the mulch. Greenhouse.
They do that. Yeah, we when I was an apprentice, we had one that we just like threw in this kind of mondo grass, and it didn't even have roots and just stayed alive for like 6 months. They're fairly indestructible, I've found.
Question for Kyle, is there a thermostat in here that we get to adjust?
Sure, that's it, honestly.
Can we open this door?
Should open all the doors, I think.
Yeah, it's a little cooler up here. That's all that's in my power right now. Alright, so we'll move on to a few club business items while Kayak keeps working and catch back up. Bill, did you have a few things you brought in?
Yeah,
to,
I got
show
some
people
short
about
talk.
what?
Can we do it now?
Yeah, you can do.
Okay, you're probably thinking, what should I be working on right now? I got a lot of tried maples and a lot of Japanese maples, so I just wanted to show you something. If you look on this, it's got a really nice trunk. You get that by having a sacrifice that goes up. Now, because of the wind in my area, and this thing's a little tippy, I let it go so far, and then I cut it back because it's just too much wind control. So, what should I be doing with that one is this. You cut it all off. I want this branch to be thicker because it's the primary branch, so I left that to grow, and that way I'll get that thicker. But this was out like this. I cut it back to a pair, and then I cut them off. Do not do this with Japanese maples. This is tried maples only, okay? And you can see it was a chunk trunk, and it's healed up pretty good. And that was a trunk top too, but because of the way it grows, you can't really see that.
So you chopped the branches and defoliated?
Yep, yep. I had already cut the branches once before, and matter of fact, I cut them on this one. These were already out to here. I cut it back to a pair, and then you can see it's already starting to grow again. Once these harden off, then I'll defoliate.
So what does it look like when it hardens off? It's not green, it's
No,
actually
it looks like
changing
this.
color?
Looks like that. That's not hard. This is hardened off. It's just not real soft like this.
Okay.
Do you pinch
So with
your
it being
Hinoki's
in view
this
now,
time of
is there
year?
enough time before?
Generally
you
speaking, I
see how it
will,
was
but I've
for
noticed,
everything hard off?
depending on the.
I'm sorry?
In terms of timing, since it's June now, it's hotter weather.
I will defoliate it 2 more times. Yes, these things are quick, they're fast, and if you keep them healthy,
Yep.
fertilizer, you can defoliate 3 times.
Gotcha, shade cloth or you did full sun?
Full sun.
Full sun?
Full sun. Japanese maple, do not defoliate them, okay? Some of the green ones you can do it without risk, the red ones are more risky. I don't do any of them just because I don't like the risk. But what you do is you cut it back to a pair, and then you get rid of 1 of the 2. So if you look at this, every other pair is missing a 1. And the reason why you do that is so the sun can get in, it'll activate the dormant buds inside, and you start getting some back budding so you can cut back to it later. So that's what I did. I'm got 1 more Japanese maple to do, but don't defoliate, okay?
Cut back to a pair and then take one of.
Right, cut it back to the last pair. Now, if you want that branch to be bigger, then don't do that, only cut maybe the end off. You know, part of it you gotta use some of your, what do you want for the design? So if like I did with this one where I did not cut that off because I want this thicker. You know, if I wanted this thicker too, I'd wire it down and then I'd let that grow out too. I wouldn't defoliate that one, but I defoliate all this so that eventually I can cut back to these two here.
But when you cut it to a pear and then you're leaving one of the pear, that's the one that's going to become another branch?
No, you'll get two buds, one in each place.
Oh,
The only thing you're doing is you're reducing the energy and you're allowing sun to get in. You'll get two buds on that one
so
too.
you'll eventually take the other one off too?
No,
No?
next spring maybe. If you like azaleas, what you need to do right now is you get rid of all your buds, all your flowers. You gotta take those buds off, because what that does is the tree tries to make a seed out of that, so it's putting energy into it, and you don't wanna waste that energy. So you take all the flowers off, all the buds, and then you remove all the leaves except for like the last three. And then the next thing I'll do tomorrow is I'll start wiring these out like this. And each level should be a row around. So you should be able to like take a string and just attach them around and they should be level. So what I will do is I'll wire these all down like this. And then this next level I'll wire down about the same way. And you'll basically make a cone come to the top. But everything should be on the same level. Where you don't do that with other trees. But
I've got a question about azaleas.
yes.
How much sun do you give your azaleas?
I don't get much sun in my yard anyway. But I know some people, they have 40% shade cloth over their azaleas, but my yard doesn't get that much sun. Matter of fact, my junipers suffer for
I've
it.
always wondered if my azaleas don't get much sun. So, it's good to know.
This is the Caitlin Chinese elm. The only reason why I tell you it's a Caitlin was because it does not heal well. I cut that like 10 years ago, it still hasn't healed well. So, I've already cut this once, and you'll notice that it's not like a maple. It grows like fishbone, you know, everything is lined up. And if you're in an area like the top where I want it nice and tight, you can cut back to the pear. If you want the bottom, because right now, the bottom needs to be further out. So I'll cut this back hard, and I'll just maybe cut the tip off here. And by cutting off the tip, that will activate some buds further back, but it won't stunt the growth out. I need this branch bigger because it needs to be out from under the shade of this. So I'll push this one hard, push that one hard. I'll let these down here grow further out. So, and so I'm saying that I go all the way to the last pear and cut it off. And all the way around. I've already done this once on the street.
Can
And
you
this
do
is how
that
much
with
has already
other
grown.
Can you do that with all elms?
I do it with all elms except for I don't cut it. Most elms are in like a bone. They're right, left, right, left, right, left. And a lot of times the first leaf does not have a bud. So I do 3. I'll cut it back to 3 instead of 2. Other trees, you can do it. Now, if you got sugar maples or all those other maples, I'm not expert in those. But if you got tried maples or Japanese maples, do one or 2. Junipers, I still haven't repotted on my junipers. So if you got junipers, you can still mess with them as long as you got a little bit of shade so they're not burned up. Wire junipers anytime you want this whole month. And pines, we're almost ready to do candle pruning. Anything else? Any other questions about what you should be doing right now?
And we're gonna have a little infographic in the leaf more about candle pruning pines, how to make the decision tree, whether they're single flush or double flush, and where they are in their development, and kind of answer those questions. Hopefully that'll clear some of
Fertilize.
that up.
If you're normally you don't fertilize your maples until they harden off. They should be hard now, so it's time to fertilize. Tried maples, you can fertilize them all the time. Because you're gonna cut back all that new growth. You're gonna cut back, so I fertilize mine all the time. Any other questions? I use a bunch of different stuff just so I can do growth. I do fish emulsion. When I'm lazy, I grab some powdered like Miracle Grow. I've got some other stuff, that's some hard fertilizer that I can put on there, but the squirrels like it, so they eat it. So I only put that on my special trees.
Do they eat the slow release fertilizer?
No.
Okay.
No. Osmocote, I kind of stray away from the Osmocote stuff because has a tendency when it gets really warm to let out more fertilizer than you would think a slow release would do. But, other people love it, yes.
It's kind of unrelated. Do you ever use mosquito bits in your soil to get rid of like fungus gnats?
No.
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 Have you ever heard of that? Because I kind of have some fungus gnats.
I
It's
have-
irritating to me, but it's not really like a problem to the tree yet. But
They make a systemic that you could throw on there,
Okay.
and that should kill them too.
Are you talking like
I-
under your fertilizer?
well, it's you mix it in water and you water your plants with it.
I guess where do the gnats come, like under your fertilizer?
I can't tell exactly where they're coming from, but it's just like 1 or 2 gnats at a time, and I can't see where they're coming from. They kind of circle around a plant. I think they went towards, like, I have a mint outside, and some of the leaves I tell like fell in the soil and got mushy. I think the gnats went towards that and they started going towards some of the other plants too, but it's just like only 1 or 2 flying around at a time. But
I heard a tip to put like some of your biogold and like if you use the rapeseed cakes
Mhm.
in for like tea bags, it'll help.
Okay.
That it won't grow, like it attracts so many bugs that way.
Okay.
So you might try that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd get away from the red seed cakes because
You stink.
the animals ate it.
Okay.
Cost me too much.
My dog loved rapeseed cakes.
Yeah. I get gnats, but they're not to one tree. I just get tons of gnats.
Yeah.
I'm
I
almost-
don't like them. They're
I'm almost tempted to put the little white sticker things out so they can land on.
Is your tree inside?
I have 1 inside, but the rest are outside.
Any other questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's check back in with Kai, see what the update is over here.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. So I'm essentially just roughly getting these branches where I want them. I'll probably do another fine tuning. As I get to the top, might remove a branch even if I have placed wire on it, depending on what form it exactly takes, depending on the ratio to the height of the tree, the scale, everything, all that can be considered. So what I'm doing right now is just taking the branches that I want to keep for the pads, something that is stronger but not overly strong to the point where it's too thick to make a nice soft silhouette with it, and I'm using the wire to essentially just fan that out. So the way I like to do Hinoki with this kind of initial styling is I make the pads fairly flat, and when I say I make them fairly flat, I'm not talking about the under edge of the pad, but I'm talking about the actual top of it, where there was lots of stuff that could artificially kind of fill this dome, if you will, but it's not really going to be good for the long-term effect of the tree. It's better to just kind of lay things out like this in the beginning. And if you look through this, you can see on these branches, maybe not so well from where everyone is sitting, but there's lots of green stuff hanging out on the tops and on the sides of the branches on the interior. Now, what is going to happen from cutting this tree back fairly hard, not too hard by any means, and also fanning all these pads out, is it's going to get a lot more sunlight. So you're going to develop that kind of nice natural density and volume on that pad. It's just going to take time. But thankfully with the Hinoki, in a fairly humid climate like St. Louis, they recover from that and they increase in ramification quite quickly as long as you're giving it, lots of fertilizer, lots of light. It's healthy overall. All those things combined will help you develop a tree fairly quickly without making too many shortcuts, if you will. Any questions, guys?
You have a lot of foliage by the trunk,
Uh-huh.
and are you leaving that there intentionally?
Which one? Are we talking about this guy?
Yeah, just even.
This
well,
this
I'm
branch in
looking-
particular?
Yeah, I'm
or
looking on the right, on your left there.
the one that I put a bunch of wire on, or the
Yeah,
other
it
one?
looks like,
Well,
is that intentional?
Well, yeah, that's why I put all the wire on it.
No.
Okay, are we talking about this one, maybe?
It just seems like instead of it coming out and that pad being,
Uh-huh.
the start of the show,
Mhm.
it just seems like it's all the way into the trunk, and I didn't know if that was intentional for this particular tree. The
Ah.
foliage.
Hinokis don't backbud historically, right? So you want to leave foliage where you might want.
I
buds and
don't,
branches.
I'm not following the question 100%, but I would like to answer it, so.
Foliage all the way to the trunk.
Oh, like this stuff in here?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what just mentioned as far as keeping that small stuff, that's gonna help build up the density of the pad in the future. So basically, you know, another thing you could do is if you have another branch here, you could lay that on top to kind of artificially make that, if you will. But all of this green stuff here, that will start to grow. Not all of it necessarily, but a good majority of it will start to grow. It's just how this tree naturally forms is where these branches are, they're on the interior. So since it has a very upright growth habit to it, they're getting not very much sunlight, lots of shade, and not very much airflow. So what I like to do is keep those because those are gonna start to grow, and you might need to thin it out to some degree as the tree develops, but those are gonna help give you the density and the volume to the pads. So I like to keep those when I'm doing these early stylings because that is going to help make your structure going forward. Does that kind of make sense?
Okay, yeah.
It'll look better in a year or two.
Yes.
So that-
Whereas if you were to just take all those off, in a year you're just gonna have wherever the foliage is. So you're not really gonna develop it very much. It's just gonna stay kind of in the same stage that it was after you styled it.
One of the hallmarks of junipers are their gin and shari. Is that something that you use with Hinokis or not?
You'll see them from time to time, but they're much more subtle. I think it's not really a highlight of the species, if you will. It's just something that kind of happens, and it's not a bad feature on the tree, but it's not something that you want to be like you're trying to frame that. I think overall the Hinoki is a little bit more of a kind of subtle, quiet tree, and I think having smaller gins or no gins is usually better. Something like this doesn't really matter to me. If I have time, I'll probably cut that back a little bit and make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, I guess.
Any other questions right now?
I mean, I just told her what I think is correct about these, but the reason you leave the branching and the foliage where you want it is because if you cut it off, it's not coming back, correct?
We leave the branches because we want branches.
Well, I mean, the foliage on the inside, yes.
Yes.
But these don't have historically backbud very well, correct?
Yeah, but I would say any conifer, more or less, when you're doing this kind of styling, you want to leave as many options as
Leave it
possible.
where you want it, yeah.
None of these are going to cause a problem in a year or two. Down the road, maybe, yeah, you might have to remove some, but it's better to keep those options. And as long as you're pruning it proactively when it's healthy enough, they're not going to cause any sort of swelling, obverse tape, or anything like that. It's just going to give you the density that you need going forward.
What about if you're at the nursery looking for a tree? Because I've noticed I've been at the nursery sometimes and you'll see these Hinoki that are just hollow shells of trees. I mean,
You want to, so first it depends what kind of tree you want to make, definitely. But let's say, just for discussion's sake, we want to make something similar to this. We want to make like a straightish, kind of formal, upright sort of tree. You of course want to look for a straight trunk. You definitely want to look for something that has a decent base. If it's possible, inspect the base before you buy it, because a lot of times what these will do, they're grown for garden trees, for landscaping nurseries, from wholesale nurseries. Usually they come up from Oregon. And if you're planting this in a garden with 40 other trees, it doesn't matter if the base isn't perfect. But for us crazy bonsai people, it kind of does. So if you get a chance, try to inspect the base as much as possible. Make sure that the trunk, which you see here, is not all the way down here, for example. Make sure the roots are emerging decently, because some things you can fix, but if you have a choice between tree A and tree B, and tree A has a bunch of problems, and tree B more or less looks exactly the same without any of those problems, I think we're all going to pick B in that situation most of the time. So that would be the first thing to focus on. And if you're looking for, again, kind of a more formal upright style like this, look for radial branch immersion. You can always remove branches. It's much easier to do that. To add them back in, much more difficult. So those would be the first two things that I would recommend. And then after that, you want to look at the taper of the tree. Even if you have something that's, kind of like a formal upright, you still want to have some gradual taper. Now that might not be like a triangular shaped taper, but you want to have it gradually going from relatively thick at the base to getting a little bit more slender as you get to the top. So I think those would be the most important things. Another one that shouldn't go without being said is the health of the tree. If you're gonna pick something, you wanna make sure it's healthy. You don't wanna get something, you know, from a landscape nursery that's not even completely intended for bonsai material, and then you have to bring it back to your yard and nurse it back to health for 2-3 years or something like that.
Thank you.
How long does Hinoki take to graft?
They take fairly well to grafts, actually. I'd say more or less it's the same principles and likelihood of taking as like a juniper would be, like a Japanese juniper. Usually scion grafts would be the most popular approach. Yep. Okay.
Any other questions before we take another commercial break?
I got a quick one. So I saw earlier some of the branches you were taking off via scissors, some of them you were just finger pruning.
Yes.
Do you have any rationale between the two choices, or just whatever you think size-wise of what you're trying to remove?
In Japan, a lot of the Hinokis, where was that cup at? It's by the way. Now that I'm thinking of it, Mike, do you have the putty with you? I have some putty, yep. If you could grab that, would be great. Generally speaking, in Japan, they get trained with pinching. That's pretty common. What I've noticed between my travels in the U.S. and other places outside of the U.S. is as long as you have enough humidity and you're giving them enough fertilizer, they react very, very well to it. But if you don't have enough humidity and you're not giving enough fertilizer, they react very, very poorly to it. So you can scissor prune them as well. In this case, doing something like this with your hands is just a bit quicker. And it's not something you can do with every species. Of course, if you aimlessly do that to like a juniper, you're gonna get a bunch of juvenile foliage.
Yeah.
So it's something that is somewhat unique to the Hinoki, but it's pretty common technique in Japan to prune them that way.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll go ahead with a few club announcements then, and catch back up with Kaya in a few minutes. So next month in July, July 7th, we're gonna have a program that's focused on the summer. So we're gonna talk about beating the summer heat, some techniques you can do to reduce the stress of the high intensity sun and those, you know, couple 100-degree days we get every year. So some tips and stuff for getting your trees to survive that. We'll talk about what kind of work you can do on tropical trees in the summer, which, spoiler, is most of it. But we'll talk about some different tropical species and what people are doing and kind of how you go about that. We'll also, how many people have a pomegranate that they got from the club? Yeah, most people. Excellent. So we will have our, last year we announced we were having like a little pomegranate contest to see, you know, who could do the best with their pomegranate, their free pomegranate that they got from the club. So if you're proud of your pomegranate work, bring it in next month. We'll do the votes for the pomegranate contest, and we'll have some little prize or something for the coolest pomegranate.
It was like, just all it left about.
All right, so that's next month, July 7th. It's on the calendar. Is there anyone here who joined the club last month at our spring show? Is there anyone? Yeah, awesome. So for new members, if you haven't gotten hooked up with our Discord server, we have a Discord server, which is a really awesome place to be able to ask questions and also see the questions that other people are asking, or see the kind of work that Bill just did on his trident maples this week, you know, kind of get a sense of what people are working on, and you know, if you have some weird insect that you identify on your tree, you know, post a picture on there and people can help you identify it and tell you like what kinds of pesticides you need to use, like all kinds of stuff like that. So come see me at the end of at the end of the meeting today, and I'll get you hooked up with our Discord server. Either you're a new member or you've been a member for a while and just have never gotten on there, we can get you hooked up. So it's a really cool tool, and I'd say it's a pretty active community we've built there during the growing season. There's usually at least 2 or 3 posts per day, sometimes more. So it's fun. I enjoy it. Lastly, we mentioned the spring show. So who here went to the spring show and enjoyed it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so this was the first time we've done it in something like, we were trying to calculate, it's been at least 12 years since we did a spring show last. And it was just awesome that we were able to pull that off and get so many great trees and get some new members coming into our club and, sell some things and show off our trees that, otherwise, I don't know, it's cool that you get to see each other's trees rather than just being, in somebody's backyard or something. It's great to be able to share those trees and let people experience them, let other people experience them, and let the public experience them too. So last month I did a little propagation experiment where I was seeing how well cuttings took from Styrax japonica, Japanese snowbell, and putting them on heat mat. And the answer is it works very well. So I have way too many Styrax japonica, so I'm gonna give out a few little thank you cuttings to some people that I noticed volunteering a lot and helping out a lot. What was that, about 2 or 3 weeks ago at the spring show? And it feels like forever ago. All right, so I'm just gonna go around and give out some trees, and we can get back in with Kaya and catch up with him. So Andrew, I saw you.
I've got one thing.
Yeah.
Sandra Petersmeyer, are you here?
Yeah.
Was that? No, I'm good. Thank you, Christian.
If you don't want one of these, don't feel obligated. You want one of
So you live in Japan and you travel back here all the time for work? Is this how you make your living?
I've got a few different ways. I mean, it's all bonsai, but I do work over in Japan.
Yeah, but you work in a nursery in Japan?
Yeah.
How do you like that?
Oh, I work by myself.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I didn't know if you worked at a nursery still.
I do some help with a couple friends from time to time, like when they need it. They're bonsai nurseries, that sort of thing. I do like tours over in Japan. I come over, I'll drive them around, help them out with translations and all that. So it's a pretty good collective mix of a few things. Definitely the traveling is a fairly substantial part of it.
I thought I heard you on a podcast once talking about coming back here and opening up a nursery.
Yeah, I think I'll stay in Japan a little bit longer, but it's still on my radar. Yeah.
I have my wife at home right now watching YouTube videos about Japan. I'm trying to get her convinced to go. So.
Oh yeah? Now's a good time to do it. It's a lot cheaper with the current value of the yen.
Yes.
Do you have a website?
No, I do not.
Instagram and Facebook?
Instagram, Facebook, yes, I do have those. Website.
Would you want to
I got too many,
So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you to do a tour, how would they go about doing that?
I don't advertise.
Oh, you know, yeah. I'm just saying, that's fine. I just,
I do have small groups for just mostly like close clients and students. If you want to do like a general tour, you want to be a great person to do it with. Yeah, the groups are a little bit bigger, but I don't usually advertise. Okay. But I can give you my business card if you're, or get my email if you're interested in it. I do a few small ones. I'm not saying you're not invited. But they're just usually small groups. But if you want to learn about it, I'd be happy to send you an email.
I just like to ask questions for the YouTube videos.
No, that's great.
If you have businesses, we want to promote them for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm trying to convince them to start podcasts.
Oh, yeah?
So whenever we have guests, we can get them on the podcast.
We got a water on it. I'm just 3 weeks later, I studied. And, 15 years later, I still know where you might not be able to.
I trademarked the name of it the other day.
What's that?
I trademarked the name of the podcast.
Oh, yeah? What'd you come up with?
Central Time.
Okay, I like
Central
that.
Time Bonsai.
Central Time Bonsai, that's catchy. Catchy enough, definitely.
I'm going to change my YouTube channel to that.
I tried to get it.
We got out of control. So I'll announce to everybody that you do tours and they should call you.
Or don't, that's fine too.
Oh, yeah. No, this is a new operation to fix the whole. New doctor session. Oh, yeah. No, it took her a month. And if they didn't do it, people would not want it. Yeah, there is, she has a registered
Ready to talk again, or?
Sure, I mean, whenever you're ready to go.
All right, everybody, let's quiet down.
Quiet down, please, everybody!
Sorry. Little bullhorn?
Yeah, a little bullhorn.
All right, when I do this, just pretend that's cool. All right, so let's get back to our program. Catch back up with what Kai is working on. Last thing, I think Jefferson wanted me to announce that there's a 20% off discount for all.
All members get 20% off of $5 pots.
So check out pots he's got over there. They're really awesome. All right, Kai, what you got going on?
Okay, so we're just going through and basically wiring all these branches down to get them into position. I cut one from this side because it was a little too busy. I'm not 100% sure if this first branch will be necessary down the road, but sometimes with those kind of things on trees, you know, if they're not causing an initial problem, they're still bringing energy into the tree, and they might have potential to turn into something aesthetically a little different down the road. Generally speaking, I like to hold off on just making those big decisions. Let the tree fill out for a year, let it grow, see how it evolves, and think about it for a while, because that is bonsai. I often get asked this. People ask me, what would you do with this tree if it were in your nursery? And my answer is always, well, I'd probably put it on the bench, and I'd water it, and I'd give it fertilizer, and I'd probably think about it for 6 months. Because bonsai is not made in seconds or minutes or hours. It takes quite a bit of time. And I've seen that firsthand with my own experience, with many highly respected professionals in Japan that have given trees opportunities to evolve and themselves evolve as people and think about those kind of options. And sometimes you end up with some pretty cool stuff from just waiting, I think. So that's basically what we're doing. It's fairly monotonous at this point, just kind of slapping wire on, bringing branches down, and cutting things down to silhouette. I did get another comment about pinching that I just wanted to go into again. I usually prefer to cut the more lignified stuff with scissors. It's just that kind of really, really strong stuff out at the ends of the foliage. There will be some smaller branches like these ones here. They're a little bit weaker, but they're good options for the futures. Those I really didn't pinch because we want to encourage those to grow. So it's something I'm just doing in the exterior of the tree on the utmost strongest areas throughout the tree as well.
Second question.
Yes?
What, the lignified branches, when you pull them down, is it by feel that you don't crack them or break them, or is it trial and error?
Years of practice.
Okay.
My best advice,
Choice between lignified or like supple, smaller?
when you're bending a branch, you mean, or?
Yeah, bending.
So the best advice, and this is not just for Hinoki in particular, but any species, when we're wiring, we might only be plying the wire with one hand, but we have two hands. These 3 fingers on your, whatever your non-dominant hand is, are very important. These should always be supporting the branch and or the wire. So as you're wrapping the wire around crotches of the branch or the trunk, these guys are supporting that piece of wire so that you don't get gaps. You don't want to press it into it by any means, but you want to make sure it's firmly supported and resting against that branch or that part of the trunk quite nicely. And the other thing this hand is doing is it's supporting the branch that you're bending. So if you're bending something and you're applying quite a bit of force, on some of these bigger branches it's not as much of a concern, but just to demonstrate, I'm always supporting either underneath or on top or both of the branch with this non-dominant hand. So this is doing the majority of the heavy lifting work, but this is a very important supporting hand. So that's the most important thing, is just go slow, feel for those signs of stress. A lot of times, like, this refers more to a big branch, but when a big branch breaks on a tree, usually you're like, oh wow, this thing's moving so easy. And that's right when that tension is lost, is usually right when it goes snap. So just to digress on again, just make sure you're using both your hands, gently, applying pressure throughout the tree, giving it support where it needs to when you're doing those bends, and just do it slowly.
When you're talking about pinching, I'm gonna jump back real quick so this video can see it. You're talking about pinching the tiny green tips of the branches, correct?
Yes.
You're not talking about pinching off full chunks like that?
No, that kind of work, like if it's anything more lignified, if I'm cutting back in the structure, I'll do that with scissors, and then just using the pinching, only on a strong tree, of course, only on the utmost strong shoots. Like, I'm not going to go back into these areas where we have shoots that have been severely shaded out and pinch that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if this is the underside of the branch, I might pinch that off to clean up the silhouette, but I'm not going to pinch that and expect a second flush by any means.
But you would just kind of hold the tips and pinch it like that?
More or less.
I've got another question for you.
Okay.
Could you do
No.
this work in stages? Like, let's say you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
And could you do like the first branch one night and then another branch? Or is it better for the tree to just do it all at once?
I think it's better to just do it all at once, but if you're a busy guy, I wouldn't spread it out over like a month or something like that.
Sure.
Because the thing is, you have to realize, like, let's say we're working top down. Let's say these sit like this for like a week, and then this stuff sits untouched. Well, part of this tree is very, very strong. Well, part of this tree is very, very weak and getting shade. So 2-3 days,